Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Entrepreneurship Summit 2022. After the successful completion of the Innovative Talk series in the morning, which features industry leaders, our next segment is the most awaited Entrepreneurship Conference. Entrepreneurship Conference is a platform where FMS Delhi invites business leaders to its campus to share their valuable experience and knowledge with academia. The panelists of the Entrepreneurship Conference discuss on a topic that attempts to give students and aspiring entrepreneurs a glimpse of the rapidly changing industry from the perspective of top leaders. The agenda for today's discussion is Rise of Unicorns in India. And we have with us four prominent leaders from the Indian startup ecosystem, which will be joining us today for the panel discussion. Firstly, we have with us Deepak Parekh. He's the co-founder of Career Kida, a platform that impacts professional-specific practical training and skill development to help people employable in the 21st century. In addition to this, he's also a digital content creator and creates millennial-friendly, thought-provoking content that mainly focuses on upskilling the youth of the country. Next, we have Vikas Gutiala. He has a professional experience of 35 plus years and a successful track record in India and abroad in a wide range of industries, including FMCG, healthcare services, EMS, and a 24-hour global emergency assistance. In addition, he has over 20 years of hands-on experience in 4 startups as an executive leader in various sectors. In 2009, he also established and co-founded Falk India, a medical emergency services company, also established to help in the Indian healthcare segment. Next, we are joined by Neha Juneja. She's currently the co-founder and CEO of India P2P. She has been the co-founder of Greenway Appliances, which is a startup that designs and markets efficient cooking solutions to rural households. For the past 11 years in rural India, she has organized community-led projects and provided need analysis consulting in a variety of areas such as agroforestry, primary energy supply, and water access. She has been internationally recognized for her excellence in product design. Moving on, we are joined by Kapil Jain. He's the co-founder of Crypto Minter, a Web 3.0 marketplace protocol to monetize creative work without the cost and complexity of coding. He is also the chief executive officer for Graffito Labs. In addition to this, he has also worked with Ruchi Soya Industries as an executive advisor to managing director and head projects and government solutions. I welcome you all today and thank you all for joining us. Now, moving on to today's discussion, let's set the pre-context. It's raining unicorns in India. Amid an unprecedented funding spree for India startups across sectors, as of 9 February 2022, India is home to 88 unicorns, with a total valuation of approximately 295 billion US dollars. The year 2021, 2022, and 2019 saw the birth of maximum number of Indian unicorns, with 44, 10, and 9 unicorns adding to the spree each year respectively. COVID-19 has caused a great amount of socio-economic suffering globally, but it is during this time when the resilient Indian entrepreneurs and the Indian startup ecosystem has worked effortlessly to not only contribute to the economy, but to also contribute towards COVID-19 relief efforts. In 2020, we witnessed the birth of more than 10 unicorns. It's raining unicorns has been the motto of the year 2021. With 44 unicorns pumped in the ecosystem and many unicorns still in the waiting pipeline. So this panel discussion today, we will look into the aspects of the reasons for the same, the impact of government support, use of crisis as an opportunity, future prospects given the Fed rate hike, and geopolitical tensions. Now, I would like to open the floor for the fellow panelists to carry the discussion forward. I would invite any of the panelists to open the floor and lead the discussion.
All right, now, why don't you go?
Thank you, Vikas, and hello, everyone. I'll give a little start here. So I graduated from FMS back in 2008, just giving you a little bit of a story there, and started right after. I started a derivatives trading platform back in 2007, 2008. And the startup scene was very different there. So I've been subsequently been in the I've not held a job. I've been in various 3 startups essentially, and I've seen through the years how things have changed, at least back from 2008 to now. I think there's a much greater recognition of what a startup's journey looks like. There's a much better understanding. There's more money. There's more. There's more. I mean, in spite. The world economy is kind of supportive of venture funding at the moment. Things might change, but it is supportive of venture funding at the moment. But there's also a lot of domestic money at play here, which essentially goes on to say that over the years, there's a sort of a playbook has been set as to you launch a venture, you raise money, certain things work, certain things may not work, some ventures may work, some ventures may not work, and you take things from there. And I would say that this is a really great time to do a startup because your ambitions are not constrained by the amount of resources you can raise. So this is not a time where resources are hard. I mean, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you wanted to do something, you had to worry about raising money. You had to worry about making, your product work, other things work, and you also had to worry about, breaking even at some point in time. But I think at this stage, entrepreneurs don't have to worry about the stress of having resources. Just build the business the way you want and take it from there. And I think just that flip in thinking is what is causing us to see so many unicorns. But on the flip side, it also means that we have too many enterprises dependent on just a steady stream of resources, and that may not necessarily be a good thing. That there has to be some balance somewhere. I will stop here. Thank you.
Okay, Anya, thanks. I totally and fully agree with you. I've been so I'm 84 batch FMS, right? So after having a reasonably a lengthy career as a corporate executive, I turned an entrepreneur in 2009. Then I successfully exited my venture and became a full-time angel investor. But I had been doing angel investing since 2009. So I've seen, all the changes that you just mentioned in your opening remarks. So, I'd say that what I see happening is that the whole startup ecosystem way back in 2009-10 was fueled by curiosity, which was brought into India by successful entrepreneurs who had seen how it has worked primarily in Silicon Valley, who kind of felt that this could be built in India. And I think they made a brave start, right? So whatever things that Neha said, it was early, things were very difficult. Entrepreneurs had to struggle. Funding was a big issue. But I think credit to all those young startup founders who took the plunge, stayed in the space, and created the confidence for it to gain larger traction. From the initial curiosity phase, I think it turned into a supportive phase. Because when people saw encouraging results, and when they felt that India has all the mix, all the energy, passion, ideas, opportunities, except they were lacking in capital, and which kind of started to come in through. And thank God for a very fortuitous environment around the world. The interest rates were very low, so capital could travel across borders at a very low cost and support even at the deep end Indian angel investment startups and founders. And I think that was very, very critical. So that was the second phase. It turned from curiosity to supportive. And I think over the last few years, we have seen that supportive has now turned into confidence and bullishness. And the one marker for that is that, in the right till about 3 years ago, the entrepreneurs of startups were carrying the entire burden of creating a definitive story of success. They bring the idea, the passion, the energy, the struggle, the failure, the success. And, but about 2 years ago, when the large Indian business houses started to move into the entrepreneurial startup ecosystem and began to cut big checks to acquire very, very successful market leading ventures, then you know that it has now arrived. The moment of the 8-10 years of struggle and journey has culminated in entrepreneurs being recognized by very, very large business leaders, because they felt that now not only do we have a very large number of scaled up ventures, unicorns as we call them, but they were actually addressing successfully a definitive need which the Indian consumers were now sort of paying for with their wallet, right? So I think once that began to happen, then the whole explosion of rapid scale up began, and now you see, as as was said in the opening remarks, it's raining unicorns. We'll come back in the discussion why we have to still exercise caution. Just because you're over the fence and now you're a unicorn, it's not a permanent status. It's not a Padam Shri. You still have to struggle and see how you continue to make things successful as the sometimes get harder. So I think I'll stop in that. And as the conversation ensues, I kind of share more views. Thank you.
Kapil, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I have a little bit of connection with FMS. In the year 2009, I guess I was one of the business presenter in your college. Thank you so much for inviting me after a decade or so. So, we all are talking about what were the, lagging factors about this, unicorn scenario right now existing in India. But what about the, leading factors? Right. So if we talk about number of startup who got registered with the startup ecosystem in India is roughly 63,000, and we are talking about 100 unicorns, right? So roughly 1 out of 1,000 startup is becoming a unicorn. So in unicorn, we need to understand that this is just a number of being evaluated as a unicorn. People are now talking about decacorn, $10 billion valuation, hectacorn, $100 billion valuation. So the idea is that, after being, as rightly mentioned by, Vikas sir, that it is not a Padam Shri, right? It is a big responsibility because from pre-seed round, so many of the listeners are students, right? So from the bootstrapping to pre-seed to seed to series A to series E, there's a long journey, right? And at every stage, you have to prove some milestones which you have achieved. So when I started my journey, when I was back from the US in 2014, the ecosystem actually got too much, friendly to the startups. And in last 3 to 4 years, because of the various nudge effects by government of India in terms of, giving impetus to the startup. Now, being a startup guy is not a taboo, Honorable Prime Minister or people who are actually making the policies are actually promoting students to be entrepreneurs, right? So instead of being a job seeker, can you be an employment creator? And this is being considered as a prestige issues also, that I'm a startup guy. Even at the age of say 40 or something, we take pride in saying that, okay, I have 2 startups which I'm running. One is into healthcare, one is into cryptocurrency and stuff like that. So impetus is there, and then a lot of infrastructure has also been provided. So one of my very close friend, who co-founded Razorpay, he started his journey by a small incubation center which was supported by IIT Mumbai, right? So these small things which takes you to those rounds from say pre-seed or conception level to series E, and then you become a unicorn. You have to have a series of efforts which are concerted in a meaningful direction. We talk about various sectors which have actually bloomed to be a unicorn. Few of them are in fintech, right? Marketplaces, SaaS, and stuff like that. So 3 things which happened after 2016. One is the penetration of internet, right? We have roughly 55% smartphone users right now in India, right? 65% penetration of say broadband access or internet access. Secondly, the UPI system which happened, right? So people are now having access to pay it digitally, right? So people can get money. So the startups like us can get money at a click of seconds. So the turnaround time of those payment system has certainly increased. And thirdly, this last 2 years, which we have seen wherein, people are actually more technological friendly. So earlier, we used to think, okay, startup, buy, sell, or, some value is being created. But what about, the numbers? We have seen multiple startups who have closed revenues of $100 million, right? So when we talk about valuation, it is not the money which is pumped in terms of the valuation, where, a person is putting, say, $100 million at a valuation of $1 billion, but there are actual revenue numbers which are being supported so that those startup who went till 1 billion can actually go to 5 million. And in last 6 months, we have seen IPOs coming up, right? So they have given an exit to those investors who put in money, right? All this, so like Mr. Vikas, he's an investor himself. So he is investing so that, he may get say 10x or 50x or 100x. So are there avenues of exit which are being considered at a policy level by government? And even if you are not a surplus or a profit-making company, you can go and list in stock market, and people who have invested can actually come out of it by making money. I'll add few more points once the forum is open for discussion. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Neha, and thank you, Vikas sir, for all your insights. I have a fresh perspective. I am not an FMS alumni. I graduated from St. Xavier's, Calcutta, fairly young. I think 5 years back I graduated, which I consider myself as old, but that's where I come from. So yeah, I think when we're talking about unicorns, we're talking about startups gaining the unicorn status and decacorn status and hectagon status. What I personally feel is we're coming from the base of funding, right? And what exactly is glamorized in the startup ecosystem is how much funds you've raised. We proudly are a bootstrapped company, wherein we haven't felt the need to seek any external funding whatsoever till date, and we are proud to say that. In terms of funding, I think we've always given a thought कि यार funding raise करना चाहिए कि नहीं करना चाहिए. It's something that we've always thought of. And of course, if you have raised a certain amount of money for your startup, there is an access to a lot more resources, a lot more avenues, but then you give away equity as well. And then of course you give away ownership in its truest sense. One of the things that I heard about startups, and of course it's very prevalent in the startup ecosystem, is that once you start raising funds, there's no stopping. Right? It's like a vicious cycle of funding, wherein you start raising funds, you start with pre-seed, then you go with seed, then series A, B, C, D, E, F. The list goes on and on, right? So you start raising funds, pre-seed, you then show some traction, then you go to seed funding, then you go to series A, B, C. And as as Kapil mentioned, you got to show some traction to the investor before raising the next round of funding. So again, coming back to the baseline about startups gaining unicorn status, especially in 2022, I think around 10 startups have already gained unicorn status. I think more so we need to stop glamorizing funding and start glamorizing product. That is something that, in essence, in its truest sense, what startup is all about, because I've seen so many startups build and fail. I'm sure we all have seen a lot of promising startups fail just because they couldn't show traction, just because the product wasn't promising enough. They've raised funds, but then they failed as a product. So what essentially matters to me as a startup founder, as an entrepreneur, is just product market fit. If the product fits the market, whether the product fits the market or not, that's it. If it fits the market, if it's consumed by the consumers, great, I'm good to go. Funding, of course, is an external factor that will help you gain access and get speed and get there faster. But then that's necessarily not the right, right way to gain speed and get traction. Of course, as I mentioned, once you start raising funds, there's no stopping you. You keep on raising funds to give the previous investor the exit, but you need to decide whether your startup actually requires funding or not. So that's my 2 bits. That's my opening remarks. I'm sure once the forum opens for discussion, we'll get dive deep into it.
So Deepak, I really resonate with a lot of things that you said. I can only add, look, not every startup has a DNA which is suitable to ingest risk capital, right? The problem here sometimes is that any founder who starts any new venture and puts on the sticker of a startup, they now feel that they are eligible and entitled to seek funding. And as you very rightly said, people who are investing in your startup know a few things. That one, I have to place many bets because, as Kapil said, that 1 in 1,000. You know what? It's not going to get any better for unicorns because that is the stat, right? So thousands of people practice in the nets and you only get one Kapil Dev or you get one Dhoni, right? And that's the unicorn of cricket, and that's no different to the kind of success rate. If unicorn is the marker of success, given today's discussion, right? So not every startup can do justice to taking in risk capital, because as Deepak said, that means that now you are on a treadmill that you constantly have to run faster to create value so that the incoming investor is able to get an exit and you're continuing to attract more and more capital to grow. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it does not work if your journey is a unicorn. Now, whenever anybody is investing in a startup, whether it's an angel round or whether it's a more mature round, they will try to, that's just because we're talking here to students, and what should be their focus if they have a dream to build a startup, which will be a unicorn. They will look for 3 things principally: team, traction, TAM, target addressable market. So you may have initially a very sharp definition of that combination is, but as you scale up and as you go up, you have to convince an incoming investor that prospectively your thesis of your ability to build a team that can handle scale, that can pivot, that can still remain nimble is there, that your traction on the basis of which you probably were able to attract the first pre-seed or seed funding round has also grown, right? And third is that the target market that you are addressing is large enough for incoming investors to feel that there is merit in investing because there is scale at the other end of the efforts being put in by the team, right? Now, a lot of people can start, and that's perfectly right, start a lifestyle business, adventure tourism, gourmet chocolates, and stuff like that, while those may be very successful, promising business ideas. But if you are going to pitch to seek capital, which in today's environment, you may also fortunately or unfortunately receive, and then only to find that your venture did not have the DNA to scale, to be able to take multiple rounds of investments and constantly grow. Because a unicorn, a startup, this funding, this entire thing means that very quickly with the capital that you receive, you will show very, very sharp growth. If you don't show sharp growth, investors lose interest. And only if you show sharp growth, but very rightly, as Deepak said, on the basis of the fundamental economics and what a business should have, at somewhere along the other, it could fall like a pack of cards. It could even happen to ventures which have received maybe 2 or 3 rounds of funding and have large enough, but they suddenly find that they're going nowhere. So be very, very mindful. Not every startup venture has the DNA to absorb and do justice to risk capital. The stat of any startup to become a unicorn will seldom go beyond what we have today. If the base grows big, if the needs that we are targeting are relevant, the unicorn number at the top will grow, but it will not grow disproportionately more only because more capital is available. Because remember, at the end of the day, the team traction TAM equation must be fulfilled for people to continue investing in your journey. Yeah, thanks.
Just to add, what Vikas sir and Deepak mentioned, regarding this dilution of equity and, the DNA structure, to just two examples, the entire food delivery market in India is less than $6 billion. But the valuation of only two companies, Zomato and Swiggy, is much more than $10 billion. Now, what we are betting on here, the market is not there, but we are betting on the lifetime value, and we are also betting on the kind of pie which is going to get increased in, say, 5 years down the time or 3 years down the time, right? So when an investor puts money into you based upon the team and the target audiences which you are catering to and the traction which you have, but then they also look into the kind of volumes which are going to be derived from such business models. People are putting money, one of the highest valued startups called Tesla, they might be, selling fewer number of cars right now, but people are betting on mobility. Many startups in India right now are raising funds for mobility sector because it is very, very certain that EV mobility is going to be the next big thing in India. Similarly, people like us who ventured out into non-fungible tokens or cryptocurrency exchanges, you have seen an amazing rise in the funding ecosystem in last 1 year or so, right? And one more thing is very, very important to understand is that, as an entrepreneur, when you are solving a problem, the problem is not with the equity. The problem is with the runway which you need to have to actually fly, right? So whenever you raise money, say, even if you raise, say, a series A or a seed round, people will ask you, why do you need money, right? And if you have no answer to that question, that they are not going to give you money, right, Deepak? So, whenever a student come to me and say, ki, mujhe paisa chahiye, I need money for what, right? You have to show me the expenses which you are going to incur. They will answer, okay, we want to, do business development or say hire some resources. Then, we need to actually put some money into digital marketing and stuff like that. But that is something which we need to understand from the long-term perspective, right? And after say, I'm putting in money, say $100,000 in your initial seed round, again, you will come to me, say, after 8 months or so that, my money has gone. Now I want to raise, say, a couple of more millions so that I can have a runway of around 1 year or 6 months, right? So once you are, attached to an investor, you also have to take care of that investor. And investor also need to make sure that the money which he has put into your startup is multiplied, right? So again, he will pump in. So to the audiences which we have right now, majority of them are students. We need to also, let them know that, this entire 1 billion club, when you reach, you also have to take care of all the stakeholders, and the stakeholders will take care of you. And that's why when you start working, the DNA need to be strong. And that DNA is your team, is you, and also the initial investor which are coming up with you. One of the problems which we faced while raising funds was that, who is the lead investor? And those lead investors which we hear about, like SoftBank or Sequoia Capital or, Antler, or these guys never come in seed round. So that initial runway is very, very important. And for that runway, if you need to dilute your equity or say convertible bonds, if you are, very much aware about the ecosystem of what VC plays around, then you have to make sure that, you also take care of all those stakeholders so that your larger goal is achieved. Over to you, Neha or Vikas or Deepak.
I'll just pitch in there. Sorry, Neha. So what Kapil mentioned is absolutely on point, and I second that. Just a quick point that I have to make here is what the startup ecosystem has done essentially in India is by the advent of Shark Tank. I think what has become is now entrepreneurship has become a very household name. Now I'll give you a very classic example, right? I was in the UK and I came back to Calcutta in my home city just like 3 to 4 days back. And since Shark Tank India was released, just I think a couple of months back. I did not have access to TV because I was in the I was in the UK, and I was pursuing my masters there, and I did not have access to TV, so I did not get I did not get to watch any episode of Shark Tank India. And I used to see a lot of memes, by Ashni Grover and Amit Gupta, Aman Gupta, and all of these entrepreneurs. And I did not used to resonate with all of this. But when I got back here, the first thing I saw was one episode of Shark Tank India with my family around. And my mother, being a housewife, she said that it's a great show. She has no idea about what entrepreneurship is. She just knows about the traditional businesses, right? How a business is run, because that's where we essentially come from. But when I was very intrigued as an entrepreneur to see how Shark Tank India has emerged as a show, she said that the founder of Lenskart is such a great human, Piyush Bansal, and there are so many other entrepreneurs who are sitting on the seat. She's like this, he's like that, and so on and so forth. So now, entrepreneurship has become a household name in the remotest parts of the country as well, right? And I felt so happy seeing my mother talk about entrepreneurship, seeing my mother talk about funding. She said, "Arey, usko paisa nahi mila, uska business acha nahi tha." I mean, that's great news in terms of a startup ecosystem. That's great news in terms of entrepreneurship becoming a household name, because however the show is, whether it's good or bad or how much ever it is being criticized, it is a start in a good direction. And that in itself is important. Awareness is important about startups, because a lot of students, and I know this because I graduated like 5 years back, and I started up while I was in college. So I understand how the youth thinks about starting up. They have this vague idea about funding. They have this vague idea about, I have this great idea. Should I just start up, or I'll build the team as along the way, and I'll raise funds. Why do you need to raise funds? Do you have any idea whatsoever whether you actually need to raise funds, or is it just the glam that's attracting you? So again, I think shows like Shark Tank India and other shows like like the Shark Tanks from the US create some sort of awareness in the startup ecosystem, especially in India, where the youth wants to enter the ecosystem and tries to sort of capture the market. It's a step in the right direction, I feel. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you, Deepak. Since this is home base for me, I'll be a little candid and share my experience with why I thought one fundraise wasn't necessary in the previous company, and why I think fundraising in the current company is, we're on the treadmill. It's a treadmill. You can't get off it. So my previous venture, which still, of course, continues to run very well, is in the business of manufacturing clean cook stoves, essentially matti ke chulhe ka replacement, and also growing revenues through carbon offsets and all of that. So back in 2015, money was available. It's a business which is not a tech business as such. It's a very brick and mortar business. It's a huge market, but a very difficult market, since it's bottom of the pyramid. You kind of have to overcome patriarchy, brutal distribution, all of that. Back in 2015-16, we did raise a round of capital, which was around 2.5 million or so. 2.5 used to be Series A back then. It's seed now, that kind of a thing. And we did raise money. And if I look back now, and we subsequently were able to give some kind of an exit to our investors as well. But if I look back, that round of capital didn't really change the course of the business. It did not necessarily accelerate our sales or operations or even supply chain capacity beyond a point. And if I think at it, I'm being very, very candid here. I don't think I've said this out loud before, but it was perhaps unnecessary. Things wouldn't have been very different with it. Was nice. Like, a lot of people congratulated us, the paisa raise kar liya. I would go back and say that, have you even seen my product? Please, congratulate me on the product. Iski wajah se paisa raise hua hai. But have you even seen the product? And there is just this glamour around fundraisers. But once you're on this side, once you're actually starting up, you'll realize that glamour is, I think that glamour is more for outsiders than insiders in the startup space. Having said so, in the current venture is a fintech venture. It's an investment platform, and this business, the way it's designed, is needs a certain amount of capex right at the start, and it comes with a big fiduciary responsibility towards retail investors. So I would not want to cut any corners on ops or just risk management or otherwise, and which is why for this one I think raising capital becomes important right at the start, which is what we've gone ahead and done. But having said so, having been through those cycles, it's not as glamorous on this side. Once you have a working product, people are buying your product. That is the satisfaction you're looking for. And if you have capital and you don't have the satisfaction of people buying your product, it's a very distressing space to be in.
I have a question for the fellow panelists. So now that we are discussing about raising funds and how certain sectors are investors are bullish towards certain sectors. So as we have seen that unicorns in the current scenario are coming out from fintech and e-commerce sector. So most of the unicorns are coming out of these two sectors. So is it a thing that the VCs or investors are bullish about one particular sector, and it's certain particular sectors which are getting a push in this ecosystem, or we have seen an all-round increased investment across every kind of startups? So over the past year, most of the startups that coming up have been fintech, whether be it B2C or B2B side, and the other bunch has been e-commerce, basically D2C companies that have come up, or fashion e-commerce websites. So the question is, like, where do you think the next bunch of startups would be coming in? Would it be the same sectors dominating the market, or have other sectors gained the momentum to raise funding and be able to grow?
So, the unicorns have actually come from quite a few diverse sectors. And especially in the last 2 years, you can easily add edtech, you can add health tech, you can add SaaS, you can add gaming. Now, so nobody comes with a thesis that I will only invest in a particular sector. There are funds who would restrict maybe their interest because they have deep domain connects and relationships and network that they feel they can bring to the venture and co-create value. So one of the most important things when any early stage founder is setting out the journey, remember, you are doing it because you believe in what you're starting will create future prospective value. And you are willing to throw everything aside and give the whole of you in the pursuit of building a large-scale business around that idea. Now, just as Deepak was saying, now, if you truly believe that this is going to become something big, then you should really be very, very circumspect and cautious about giving away equity, because as much equity that you part with will be a value that you will not accrue to you, but to someone else. So you got to make that balance. You need funding, but you also kind of are aware that you are permanently giving away ownership of your company to third parties. So you must ask yourself a question. When I get this funding, am I getting the right business partner? Not just the investor. There is a difference. You have to look at the right business partner, because you may not be aware, and you start to become aware as you scale up, that you may have thought that all you need is funding and the rest will take care of itself. But you realize that you need funding, need access to networks, relationships, you need access to people who can bring in domain experts to help you. You need help in getting the right talent. You also need to get the help to get the right kind of visibility, so that there's a larger buzz of confidence around your venture. So funding may be necessary, but ask yourself that what is the total set of resources that I'm getting, that I need from the right business partner, and then enter into that partnership. Because remember, anybody who enters your business as an investor is going to stay with you for a very, very long time. So you need to have that decision made very carefully. Now, the rule of thumb that I would advise, again, because we are talking to students, is that when you are faced with trying to raise funding, the one thing that you must very clearly articulate and say, hey, listen, right? I have some traction. In the absence of that, it's going to be very difficult for you to attract funding, right, from anyone. And the confidence you must aspire in the incoming or prospective investor is, listen, I will have future paying customers that I don't have today. But to get to those people, I need some funding so that when I, as an investor, am evaluating, I must equally get that confidence that, all right, you will have future paying customers from what I see, from where you're headed, from the traction team, and a few other things. Therefore, I'm willing to underwrite, build a bridge of my resources with your energies and passion and whatever else that you have, so that you end up in a stage when those future paying customers actually materialize. And then the thesis and the justification for making the investment works out. So remember, when you're doing a startup, it's not just that you get excited about an idea and you think everybody else should get excited. And because you have so much of passion and you're doing it and you can see it very big, unless you can articulate in a manner that is very businesslike and understood by the incoming partners, you may have challenges in not just raising your funds, but also getting customers on board that you need. Remember, the best source of funding, and I think Deepak spoke about that, Kapil spoke about that, the best source of funding in your business are paying customers. You have to create the confidence that till such time that I have an adequate scale of paying customers, I'm on my way, I will take investor money, but no more than what you can do your business with paying customers. Yeah, thanks.
If any of the fellow panelists have anything to add on the same lines.
Real quick, since we are addressing students, we need to also understand, these unicorns which we are talking in the year 2022, they actually started somewhere in 2015, 16, 17. There is a startup called Mensa who got a $1 billion club membership in just 6 months, but these are exceptions. So we are talking to students, and I think what is the next big thing which they could focus to be part of the unicorn club in, say, next 5 years, right? Vikas sir is there, who graduated in 85 or 90s. I'm there, and Neha is there. I think Deepak is much younger. We graduated in 2000s, right? So 90s was for Web 1.0. Okay, Web 1.0 is very simple, just one way of communication via internet. Then came, the Facebooks, the Google, the YouTubes, all this thing in 2000s, right? 2000 to 2010, right? And now we are talking about Web 3.0, right? So the migration from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 is inevitable, right? So if a new guy approaches me, what is the next thing which we do? Yes, whatever you can do in Web 2.0, you can also do it in Web 3.0. The things are changing very, very fast. And we also need to make sure that, the coming generation, which are going to be part of the startup ecosystem, should focus on more efficient, more decentralized system, wherein these monopolies of, the Googles and Facebooks of the world are taken away. These business models which we are thinking right now or in the last 1 decade or 2 decades is going to change drastically. It will be more peer-to-peer. It will be more decentralized. It will be less monopolized, right? And the power will be with the people who are actually using it, right? So there is the opportunity wherein if we talk to the new generation who is coming into the startup ecosystem, should also think about being part of this new dynamics called Web 3.0. Over to you, Deepak or Neha.
I'll just pitch in because the question was, which domains funding is redirected towards. I think, as Vikas rightly pointed out about edtech, we being an edtech firm we strongly, firmly believe that a lot of funding is directed towards edtech firms. But two domains, I think, in addition to edtech, fintech, health tech, where funding is redirected towards would be I'm sure Kapil would, second me on that, would be cryptocurrency exchanges. With the rise of cryptocurrency and NFTs and metaverse, I'm sure a lot of Indian cryptocurrency exchanges have raised multiple rounds of funding and tried to capture the market as much as they can. And the second would be content companies. So I've seen a lot of content companies like TagMango, Pepper Content raise funds. Regarding TagMango, it's one of my batchmates. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for 25 years, and I'm just 26 now. So considering the founder dynamics, I've understood that content companies will raise a lot of funds in the coming years. There will be a surge in more content companies, considering whether it's content monetization or giving content ideas and building a company wherein the technology and the AI will enable you to give ideas to your company in terms of developing certain marketing strategies. I think content companies will raise funds, and there will be a surge in content companies in the coming decade or so, because we've seen the rise as in how the companies have started raising funds in India. We've seen that a lot of companies have started investing in influencer marketing as well. And that's where I also come from, because being a creator, I know that a lot of companies, especially with crypto, I'm associated with CoinSwitch. That's where I come from, and I see that so many funded companies are investing in influencer marketing, which of course directly correlates to content. So my hunch is two kinds of domains that will receive funding, and there'll be more such companies in the coming decade. Would be in the crypto, NFT, metaverse space, and second would be content companies.
So my take here would be to build something that you feel a personal connection to. It's and then see what space or which sector it fits into, because as an entrepreneur, it'll be it's very, very important to really believe in what you're doing. You'll have moments where things don't seem to be working out. You'll have moments, you'll have plenty of those moments, which is why having some kind of a desire to make this work coming from inside, which is super, super critical. If you don't feel very strongly for what you're trying to build, then maybe it's time we need to take some more time before you take the call to go ahead and build it.
You see, again, just to, approach this from a sector perspective. So Deepak, you are in the edtech space, right? It is the third coming of the edtech sector. And you could have felt that edtech will go places. But then I think, as Kapil said, that, there was no broadband, no Geo, no smartphone, no UPI, no nothing, and also COVID, that even though people could see the opportunity, but the gap between where you were and the TAM and the commensurate resources you needed did not make a complete triangle. EdTech guys got funded. They struggled. Many didn't survive. Some who did, they were the second coming, and they got more funded and they became big. And in the third wave, of course, even EdTech has got, I think, more than a dozen unicorns and unicorns, right? So the same thing could play out, as Kapil said, Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So it could mean that some of the sectors and the drivers of success of those sectors could completely transform. And therefore, entry for new startups has the power to disrupt, so that you could come in what seemed like a mature, busy, crowded space. But because you have combined the evolving resource pool more smartly than what some of the legacy people could have done, you could succeed. So why did the electric car did not come out of Toyota or General Motors or Ford or Daimler or Volkswagen, right? Exactly the same thing. That these could be matured industries, but because sorry, the resource pool and the opportunity and the disruption is moving so fast that you could actually create some ventures very, very fast purely because the way the dynamics are at play. So it's and I think I fully support what Neha said. When things around you are moving at a very fast pace, you need to stand still and focus and absolutely tick all those boxes. And I say three boxes because these are students. I'll put it in a very simple language. If you're looking at a startup idea, ask yourself three questions. One, does this interest me? Which means if it comes my way, does it naturally bring out my excitement, my energy, and I feel like doing it, right? Second, am I good at it? You may get excited. You may do a Nagin dance at a party and get claps, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good dancer, right? Am I good at it? Am I getting genuine traction? Am I getting genuine appreciation or validation of what I'm doing? And third is whatever I'm good at and whatever is of interest to me, is it prospective commercially? The third step is where a lot of people don't pay adequate attention and they get carried away by the fact that they like to do it, they are good at it, and there seems to be an opportunity and they jump. But the thesis of your startup have got to be very, very sharp. So when you are putting yourself through whether I'm good at it, means you need validation that you're actually really good at it. You stand out. If it interests you, you got to see and log and say, if it interests me, how much time have I spent spontaneously on my own over the last 2 years into this, or ever since I became aware of something where I think I'm good at. And third is, all right, now what is the commercial traction, prospectiveness of this? The first two are probably 30% of the equation, and the 70% is the validation of whether this is prospective or not. And that is where a lot of rigor, hard work, validation, trying a few things will tell you that this has the making of a venture which will go somewhere, and therefore you should put yourself into it wholly and take it forward.
Sir, Vikas, sir, I have one of very direct questions to you. So, are angel investors and VCs in today's time at all worried about the startups going profitable? I mean, since they buy in a startup at its revenue multiple and sell it to private equity on revenue multiple as well. So, or is it just that they look after growth?
There's no one answer to this. So let me sort of touch upon a point which was raised and then come to this question. And I think Deepak brought in Shark Tank and what it has done. Honestly, I have never seen a Shark Tank episode in my life. For whatever I have seen, snatches of it, overseas and whatever, I personally came to a single conclusion that this is misselling and distorting the notion of what a startup is for somebody who wants to do a startup. It's an item song which will have a lot of excitement. You will feel like it, you will dance in various parties and talk about it, but it doesn't mean that your ambitions to become a dancer should be to become an item dancer. So there's a lot of excitement, I can see why it is got tremendous entertainment value, okay? But it is not about how you approach a startup, right? Now, if you are saying that whether VCs or angel investors focus on profit, they focus on the ability of the venture to scale so that the investment is also enhanced. And when you invest, as I said, on the various things, the one and only objective that you, the investor, and you, the founder, have, are you aligned in when you are becoming business partners? Are you aligned? Is that bringing what the founder does and bringing what the investor does, is this genuinely enhancing or going to enhance the earning power of the venture? In the early stages, you got to worry about that if the earning power of the venture is going to happen as a result of the resource infusion, which I said is more than just funding, right? And you just don't leave it there. You obviously have performance milestones, you have other kind of SLAs and understanding, because usually, more often than not, actually, the investment will come to you in tranches. I may have in principle committed to, let's say, put in $1 million in a venture, but it'll not be written all in one shot. It may come to you in 3 tranches. And each tranche would only follow if the performance milestones that were mutually agreed were indeed adhered to, or you got there in sort of letter and spirit, and you release the next set of resources, right? Now, whether you are focusing on growth or profitability, there's no one answer. It's a combination, because, as Kapil said, that unicorns not making money have got listed successfully, right? So what does that tell you? That people are prepared to invest at various stages, because different kinds of investors have different kinds of investment theses, who are prepared to invest in the long-term growth, getting you to a scale where it will get into creating genuine economic value for the investors. Before these listings, if you see, the sole criteria for listing and going public in India was balance sheet driven, was P&L driven. Are you making money? Are you profitable already? Okay, then I think I will kind of, invest in the venture. That has changed today. It is now on the prospective value that you will create in the long term, the track record of how you have created every successful level of growth and scale while improving your unit economics. And even though why you still may not be where traditional IPOs were happening, people say, let's look through this and feel that, we will get the value that we need tomorrow, because there are very few investors, who would kind of take that view. But usually those are the one who then are patient, they write big checks, and then they also bring, as I said, a lot of other things onto the venture. And it's not as if they write a check and then wait for things to happen. They proactively work, they sit on the board, they have rights, there are shareholder agreements, there are all kinds of other, partnership documents in which you collectively work to de-risk the business, right? The whole thesis of investment is, to what extent can this partnership de-risk or increase the probability of success? Beyond that, who knows, right? So that I would say is the broad answer. You have to work towards increasing, enhancing the earning power. You have to work jointly to de-risk the business so that you are able to get to the point where you have now sustained recurring growth, and finally reaching a destination where your customers are paying and no longer the investors.
Thank you for answering that, Vikas sir. As we head to the conclusion of the panel discussion, if any of the panelists have any advice for the fellow students or aspiring entrepreneurs, I think that'll be the time.
I will give one advice. One advice. Okay. You hear a lot of these stories about, entrepreneurs, they take risks. Entrepreneurs are bold. They're going to uncharted territory. Let me tell you, entrepreneurs do not take risks. Entrepreneurs, in fact, manage and mitigate risk. They have taken the risk by walking away from a job that was offered to them on a campus, whether it's IIT or FMS or wherever else. So they have written off the opportunity cost or whatever else it may be. Sometimes people make huge write-offs on the opportunity cost. They leave jobs in McKinsey's and Microsoft's and wherever else and start at the bottom of the pyramid creating a startup. So don't kind of get this notion this is a wild journey of excitement of taking risks. No, it is not. It is a very, very disciplined, rigorous, measured steps towards de-risking your business once you've taken a decision to move there, because you're working for one and only one thing: to create value in your business for which you need to mitigate and minimize the risk, and collectively with partners and stakeholders. So remember this. This is a very important distinction because you require more discipline, more rigor, more ethical balance in your life, to succeed as an entrepreneur. More eye for detail, more ability to handle and multitask. That won't happen if you think you just gone out there and taken risks. That will absolutely, you will horribly go wrong. If that's the reason why you jump in, that I like to ski, therefore I can also, So remember this. That's the last thing I would say. But keep in mind, this is very, very important when you are taking a decision, whether you want to take a job and whether you want to be an entrepreneur. Do not get sort of swayed and allured by this modern day tab of success of, an entrepreneur is a guy who is with it, and people who are taking jobs in multinational companies are stodgy. Multinational companies are very enterprising entities. Large companies, successful, are very enterprising companies. It is perfectly possible to bring entrepreneurial energy within what's looked like a very, very well-structured job in your organization. In fact, if you don't do that, you will not succeed. So there is enough room to play out your entrepreneurial journey and ambition, even within the job in the right sort of company, organization. Yeah. So when comes the time of placement, be there. All of you should not be sitting in the other room wanting to go to incubation centers, right? If you do, fine. But do remember that this is not such a no-brainer. If I go towards entrepreneurship, I'm appealing to a higher order set of choices in life. And what's there in taking a job with Unilever or a bank or something, or a McKinsey or something, right? Now, there is enough room for you to entrepreneurially bring success to yourself in your career. And maybe later on in life, you can, if you come across what I said, this combination, that you could look for pure freestanding autonomous entrepreneur, which, as you can see from the panels, you have 3 great examples.
One quick suggestion, just to complement what Vikas has mentioned. See, many of the students who are listening are at ideation stage, So one quote which I always follow is, ideation without execution is an illusion. Okay, so, if you just type in Google and say, this is the idea you are working on, there will be like hundreds of thousands of search results. People are working on the same stuff. It's the execution which you are, you have to be master in it, right? And these skill sets cannot be in one person. So you need to also build up a team. So the initial co-founders which you choose, right? Suppose you're a mechanical engineer, and I'm talking about Web 3.0. So right now, people like Deepak and, EdTech is booming. You can learn things real quick, at least to monitor the people who are going to work on these projects, right? So it's very, very important that, just sticking to idea, not pivoting, not validating. Again, the point mentioned by Vikas sir, it is very, very crucial, right? So it's a make or break thing, because you are at your, say, 23, 24, 25 years of age, especially, females, right? They may be, having some kind of constraints. People from marginalized societies have some kind of constraints, right? People who are youth also have some kind of opportunity cost. For example, when I was in the US, people were, actually pushing me to apply for, say, these exams like UPSC and everything, So you have so many things in your hand when you are at this age group. You just need to be focused, understand what you are good at, as rightly mentioned by Vikas sir, and also need to work on the idea which you are thinking of and execute it, and also build up a team, and also attract resources, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of people, because at the end of the day, you are fighting with existing, unicorns, and you are going to be a unicorn. How can you be a unicorn? Because you need people, you need resources, you need more time, you need to work as an individual of around 100 people. So one person is equal to 100%. So you are not having 24 hours, you are having 24 into 100 hours. You have to be very, very effective. So it's a journey, it's a lifestyle, and you have to be very, very focused once you take this entrepreneurial journey. Because after 5 years or 6 years or 10 years down the line, if you have not learned from the journey which you are having, you will be at a bad position, right? But if you learn in the process, then you may be a serial entrepreneur. You may be a VC at one point in time, and you can also understand business from a different perspective, from the problem solving side of it. So just to summarize, best of luck to everyone, and ho jaye, no problem. Over to you, Deepak or Neha.
Yeah, I'll just take over. I think there's one thing that I heard a few years ago, wherein it said that entrepreneurs get too busy pitching to the investors rather than pitching to the customers. And I think that's probably the summary of the entire panel discussion, if I may call it. But I have one point to make, especially since we're addressing a pool of students, a pool of youngsters. I know where your enthusiasm comes from. I know where your rigor and dedication comes from. All of it can go to waste if it's not coming from the right rationale. As Neha mentioned, if you are not passionate about that particular business or that particular model or that particular product, you will not be able to sustain, because that in itself, that's the wrong reason to start up. If your reason to start up is fame and getting money and all of that, it's probably a wrong reason to start up. One right reason to start up would be to solve a problem. That's all. If you're passionate about the product, if you're passionate about the kind of business you're building, you'll be more intrigued, and you'll have the zeal to work towards it even more. So that's that. Get in it. Just do not get into it just because you see the glamorized world about entrepreneurship, and you see that people have raised funds, and people a lot of startups have regained unicorn status. So you think you'll start up tomorrow, and within say 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, 2 years down the line, you'll become a unicorn. That does not happen. As Vikas rightly pointed out, thousands of cricketers go for net practice. I have played cricket professionally for Cricket Association of Bengal at the division level. Once aimed and visioned to play for India, but of course, there's only one MS Dhoni, there's only one Sachin Tendulkar. So again, think of it as something that as a game. Understand that you will get through it if you are in it for the right reasons. I have one question to all the fellow panelists before we sign off. There's this popular thought around the startup ecosystem where it says that do not leave your job to start up. And I'd love to know from you guys if it's actually true or if it's actually a myth. So anybody, if you could, take on, that'll be great.
Deepak, I'll go here. I mean, to answer your question first, I have never had a job. So I have always
high five.
High five to that. So 14, 15 years now. And so I cannot really answer that question, but I can definitely say that just, being full-time in what you want to do is critical. It's if you really want to, especially raise external capital, and so you cannot, have your kind of
what my hunch is, it's like a game of poker. You got to go all in. It's as simple as that.
You got to go all in, and to kind of come back. I want to make 2 quick points. One is that if you're looking to start up, think of it as a business. We don't think of it as we'll raise money and then so and so and so many things will happen. Think of it as a proper business. And yes, of course, businesses need capital. Think of it from a capital budgeting point of view. I do want to come back to Kapil's point. Women don't have any constraints. People think women have constraints. Women don't have any
it's not. Every one of us has some constraints. It's not specific.
Yeah, so
everyone of us have.
So there are lots of these. I just want to say this out loud again. There are lots of these women entrepreneur programs which tell women that you need to do this to come at par with with the rest of us. You don't. I mean, if a woman is starting up, for the women who are here in the student panel, you've already overcome a whole bunch of barriers to be where you are. You're already, superstars, and you've proven yourself. Just it's going to be easier for women than men, because we come through this, we walk through this perception of, oh, how is she doing this? How will she do this? She's already doing this.
Wonderful. I'd just like to say one thing before I sign off. So when I took the example of that one Dhoni, one Tendulkar, it was true for our generation, right? That was a stat. You guys, you have a terrific opportunity. Just like as I said that the startup ecosystem is very, very supportive right now, it's like the IPL. So today, a lot of people can start and go to play cricket with confidence, with passion, knowing that they will have a very large chance of being part of the ecosystem, maybe as players, maybe as coaches, maybe as managers, maybe as this. So therefore, for you guys, the opportunity to pursue entrepreneurship as a career is a lot more well settled than was in our case. I spent the first 20 years of my life, working, traveling around the world till I felt that I could do something that my company wasn't prepared to do, but I could. And then I stepped out and did it myself. So, but it took me 20 years to launch myself into the escape velocity to get to done things. You guys can start. But remember what Kapil said. Idea, execution. Remember what Deepak said. Do by yourself. Don't think that somebody will fund and bail you out. And what Neha said, if you don't have the passion, if you don't think you're all in, you will probably flounder at some point in time. Thank you and all the best to you. And I hope that you guys have super careers in whatever you may decide to pursue. All the best.
Just one last quick point before we sign off, if you allow. A lot of times we fear starting, and that that's. I mean, I've heard this one thing that the start is the most difficult step, and the start is what stops most people. So I think from the place where I come from, where I had to convince my parents to allow me to start up and to allow me to enter into the field of content creation, I think they are much more risk takers than I am because they have sort of allowed me to foray into a domain which is absolutely very uncertain in terms of money making and security. But just one thing: be courageous enough to start, because the start is what stops most people. Once you start, you will figure things out. But once you don't start, you will always keep on procrastinating, thinking when to start. Okay, tomorrow is the day I'm going to start. It's like me planning to go to the gym. I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to go tomorrow. That tomorrow never comes. So again, that's just like, please do not procrastinate. Start. It's the most courageous step. You will think twice. You will think about embarrassment. You will think about failures. You will think about what people will think of you. All of these thoughts will come to you, but you got to do what you got to do. Take the first step, take the plunge, take the leap of faith, have the process, trust the process, go for it.
Thank you, everyone. I am sure getting opinions on the unicorns and startups and their successes and failures and learning what entrepreneurs build has added a lot of value to all the students here. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our fellow panelists on the behalf of our entrepreneurship cell team and FMS Delhi for such an informative and insightful discussion. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.